This is the first time that I've fished Manor Farm for probably 10 or 15 years, and it's completely changed since the last time I was over here. So it's very important that I chuck the marker float out to start off with and find out what the swim's like. It's no point just casting 3 rods out there, not having a clue what you're really landing on, and then finding you waste 2 or 3 days because you're in the wrong spot. So I've cast the float out quite a few times, to be honest, more than I'd want to, but it's really important at the start of a long session to make sure you're dropping in the right area. So this is the setup that I use. So I've got a drop zone marker float on there, very, very buoyant. That's really important, so it comes up even when it's weedy. Flies really true that, so it goes a real long way. And then I've got a high vis vane on the top. That's really important. Some of the marker floats you'll get will have a much smaller vane on. You get them a long way out, find a really good spot, and then you can't see them. And that can be unscrewed, and I can change that for any other colours. You can get black ones and really bright yellow ones as well. Black one's really good if it's really bright, and the yellow one's really good if you've got dull conditions or it's just getting dark. And then moving down the float, I've got the bead that comes in the kit with the rest of it, and then the stem as well. Obviously that gets slid on first. It's got a great big ring on the top there that lets the line move through really easily, so it will come up even when you've got weed out there on the bottom. And then that stem is going to sit exactly like that on the bottom, so you've got a buoyant bit of foam there. Even when it's slack, it's going to sit up like that. And then the only thing I've added to this that doesn't come in the kit is that little fella there. That's a helicopter sleeve, and that just neatens everything up, stops the lead wobbling about in flight. I've had a good cast round, felt the lead hit the bottom, and it feels like the weed's slightly deeper in some places than others. So I'm just casting around until I felt a better thud. There's nowhere clear. When I pull back, you can't pull back at all. It just gets clogged up in weed straight away. So I'm just casting around, feeling it down, and then when I've got it where I wanted it, I got a fishing rod and cast that out as well, just with a lead on it. And again, just felt that lead hit the bottom a few times around the float and just made sure everything was presentable on the bottom. I've probably got about that much weed, I reckon. The float's coming up reasonably easily, even with that stem on. And I've got a hook link, probably 10 inches to combat that. I should get loads of bites out there. And then moving on to the rod, this is brand new as well. This is a longbow spod and marker, so I'm using it for the marker in this situation. You could use it for a spod rod as well, but when you're fishing with a marker rod, it's really important that you've got a high test curve and it's really stiff, because when that lead hits the bottom, the stiffer the rod, the more you're going to feel. I've got braided reel line on there as well, so if I am lucky enough to be able to pull back and feel a clear patch, the stiffer the rod, the more vibration you're going to feel down it. So this one is in the longbow range. It's built exactly the same as a longbow fishing rod, so we've got a lovely matte finish on it. Nice long, slim, slender handle on there as well. And then moving up to the rings, we've got a 50mm butt ring on there, down to a 40, 30, 25, 20, and a 16mm tip ring. So that's going to absolutely fly out there. And it's really important with your marker rod that it's stiffer than your fishing rods from a casting point of view as well, because if you've got the same rod as a marker rod or even a lighter rod, that's what a lot of people use, old rods that they don't fish with anymore, you can't get the float anything like as far as you can get the fishing rods, and then your fishing is limited to that distance. This, I can cast 150 yards with that float on there, absolutely no problem at all. So it means I can fish as far as I can with the fishing rods with the marker rod. Really important, that. And then moving down to the reel, a little bit extravagant for a marker reel. This is a Basia, but again, it's going to cast an extremely long way, certainly as far as I need to cast a rig. Loaded up with floating braid on there as well. And very importantly, I've got a 50-pound armour cord leader. Now, the reason for that is it will stop the whole thing tangling on the way out there. Because you've got such a large ring on the top of that stem, the float will pull through it and the whole lot can start to tangle on the cast. So by having a big braided leader on there, a thick braided leader, it keeps the whole lot together on the cast and it doesn't tangle. And the beauty of these as well is they're the same number of turns virtually as my fishing reels. So that's 105 turns for 100 yards. I've measured that out. On the fishing reels, it's 107 turns for 100 yards. So if I'm 90 turns on this, roughly 90 turns on the rod as well, fishing rods, is going to be almost exactly the same distance. Now, in this situation, I haven't cast at the float to get the distance right. What I've done is walk the rods out, up the lane there, and got everything at exactly the same distance. And what that saves is loads of casting in the swim, trying to get everything bang on the money. So what I've basically done is wound the float down to the bottom when I'm happy with it out in the swim, put the line under the clip, and then wound it in quickly to get it away from all of the weed. And then I've walked it up the lane with a fishing rod, laid the two on the floor, and then put the float and the lead next to each other, walked back, clipped up the fishing rod, put a little tape marker on it as well, and then carefully wound it back in. But before I've done that, I've stuck a lead from the next rod in my pocket, and I've walked that one out as I'm winding back down to the first one. And make sure you wind the line really tightly through your fingertips so that it goes on nice and tight on the reel. And I always splash the reel before casting the fishing rod, because you can end up with a massive frap up if you don't do that. And I'd repeat it with each rod and with the spot as well, so they're all dropping on the surface at exactly the same point. And then what I'm doing is flicking the spot back towards me, because the lead's going to drop towards me a little bit through that 8 feet of water that I'm fishing. So I've got a nice safe area for the fish to feed in behind the rigs and hopefully draw them in. It's only a few feet difference, and then bang, they're on the rigs and I should be getting bite. So that's how I'll feature find at the start of a session, especially when I don't know the swim. That's the kit that I use. Make sure you use a really stiff rod, floating braid, get a marker float set up that doesn't tangle, and make sure you're happy with the spot before you put the rods out.